What's up fam, this is Shegun from P3D, and in today's tutorial we're going to be making this cool little animation. So I've actually been learning geometry nodes for a while now, which is the reason for my prolonged absence from making YouTube tutorials, but subsequently I'll be releasing geometry nodes related content, of which this is one. Without wasting much of your time, let's get to it. So as you can see, it's a very simple scene here. So we just have a grid um, that we are instancing cubes on, and then on top of the cube we are also instancing the product we want to animate, then just adding some materials and we're good to go. So if I come to a new scene here, I'm just going to press new. I'm going to select the camera and the lights, and I'm just going to delete. We can keep the default cube, and I'm going to go to geometry nodes panel. I am going to close this window. I'm going to press new to add um, a new geometry node to this cube, and I'm going to press shift A. We're going to be adding in our first mesh primitive, which is going to be a grid, and I'm going to connect the mesh to the geometry output here, and you can see that the cube has been replaced by this. So just like I said before, what we want to do is essentially we want to instance um, on the faces of this grid right here, and on top of those instance we want to instance our cube, which is our product that we want to display. Alright, so if I just clear that, we can proceed. So what I'll do next is I'm going to increase the size to something like 5 or 4, depending on what you want. I think 3 is actually okay, it doesn't have to be too much. What I'm going to do is I'm going to press shift A, and I'm going to add in an instance point. Is it an instance point? No, sorry. Rather, what I'll do is I'm going to use a split edges. So I'm going to add in a split edge. It may not seem as if you are seeing anything, but if you press shift Z and you go to wireframe mode, you can see now that by the time we add this node, let me mute it first. um you can see that we have like a loop cut here and a loop cut here. Adding the split edges make it easy for us to just like scale the edges inwards. You know what I mean now. So if I press M to unmute this and I press shift Z to go back to solid view, I'm going to press shift A, and I'm going to add in a scale element. So we want to scale the element of the grid. So again, if you add that, it's still not going to show anything. Now make sure you select face, and by the time you just scale this inwards now, you can see that the elements are scaled inward. So now for the number of vertices, you can increase to whatever you like. I think I'm going to just go with 10. 10 is quite okay. So now you can see that we have all these faces right here that we can actually use to instance our product on, which is very easy. So what I'm just going to do next is I'm just going to press shift A, and I'm going to add in an extrude mesh. So we want to extrude this up, increase or reduce the offset scale. You can see that this moves both up and down. It's very nice. It's what we want actually, but what we want to do next now is we want to look for a way to control this offset scale, that it's not just that uniform, but you want something that is random. So if I just get a glance back to the one I did first, so if I go to the geometry nodes tab here, you can see here that under the extrude mesh we are using a notch texture to just kind of control the offset scale. So if we come back to our own scene right here, and I think at this point it would be good if you save, because you know Blender might crash, although it doesn't anymore. So I'm just going to save that, and what we want to do next is I'm just going to select this offset scale and just drag out this like this, and then want to add in a noise texture. You can add in any texture honestly. I think for this one I might try, maybe I will use the Voronoi texture and see how it's going to look. So now if you like change this from 3D to 4D and increase this, you can see it moves up and down. Then with the scale you have the same thing. So I think I might even use the Voronoi texture for this. So I'm basically going to be using this Voronoi texture to displace the up and down movement of this cube. Now for the size um of the vertices, or for the number of vertices, I think I might just reduce it to make it a bit bigger, and then I think for the scale element I might want to increase it as well. Okay, I think I'll keep the vertices as 10 and I'll just increase the scale element. Alright, so this is where we are so far, so maybe increase it just a bit. So now we can use this to control the up and down movement, and yeah, we are good. Now there seems to be a problem, but let's not go there yet. So we already have our instance on the grid, so we already see um the extrude mesh going up and down, and then we have it. So now what we need to do is we need to instance our products that we want to display with the animation on top of the faces of these extrusions. So what I'm going to do is I am going to press shift A, and I'm going to add in an instance on point node, and then we're going to add it here. Now I'm going to be using the product I showed you, which is this cylinder, um for the instance on top of the faces, but you can use anything. So you, in case you don't have a product, for instance, you can just click and drag out the instance and use any objects. You can use an instance where you can use maybe like a cube or something. You can use anything, so just as you can see here, but I'll be using the product. So what I'll do is I'm just going to click and drag it in here. Then I am going to take the geometry and connect it into the instance input. So by the time you do that, this is what you're going to have. Now my computer is a little bit laggy at the moment, so what I will do is let me just scale out so you can see that it's being instanced at the same time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press M to mute this because we don't even need it for now. So now you can see that the problem is if I reduce the scale of this now, let's just, so you get what I'm saying, and let me unmute this by pressing M. You can see that it's basically everywhere, and that is not what we want. We don't want it to be everywhere. We just want it to be on the top faces alone of the extrusion. So what I'm going to do now is I think for the meantime, before I use the product, maybe I will just mute this for now, or better still, let me press Alt because it's making my computer seize at the moment. So let's just use something like a cube, or maybe like use this sphere, anything for the meantime. So you can see now that this is basically everywhere, and we don't want it to be everywhere. We want it to be only on the top faces. So what I will do is I'm going to press shift A, um in my node tab here, shift A. I'm going to add a mesh to point in between the extrude mesh and the instance on point. By the time we do that, it may look as if nothing much has changed, but by the time you change this from vertices into faces, it is now only selecting the faces of the extrusion. Now I want you to select the top output of this extrude mesh and connect it into the selection input. Now you can see that only the top faces are being selected. Now for you to understand what I mean, if I press shift A and I go to geometry and I select a joint geometry and place it here, and I connect the extrude mesh into the joint geometry as well. Now you can see that these faces are instanced on top of the extrusion. So if I reduce the scale for you to even see better, you can see now that this is what we have. So they are being instanced on top of it. So like I said, it's the product I want to instance. You can use the sphere if you want, but I'm going to delete it. Then I'm just going to connect the geometry, not the scale, the geometry into the instance, and yeah, now you can see that we have it on top of this face. Now you can see that the way the product is done is negatively done. That's because the scale is on the negative value, so you have to increase it. So yeah, so far so good. So we can already see the product on top of it, but another problem you observe is that it is in the middle. We don't want it to be in the middle. So what I would do is, for the instance, what you can just do is you can press shift A and you will add in a transform geometry here. So just adding a transform geometry in between the instance on point and the joint geometry. Therefore the translation on the z axis, just bring that up like so. So you have it there. So now if you come back to this Voronoi texture that we're using to display this, you can see that this is moving up and down, up and down. Now if you even want to now make this even more dynamic, we are going to be animating the rotational movement. So what I'll do is, you can also use the scale of our object right here to also determine the scale of this. This is what I mean. So if you come to this object info and you plug the scale into the scale, you can see you are now using the real scale of the object that I used. So again, it affected the translation. You can just move it down on the z axis carefully. So boom, this is what we have. So the next thing we can do now is the animation. I think if I just go back to the first one, so yeah, we're done with that. Then we can go to the animation. So for this one, what you observe is that you have like this sort of a rotational movement that we add, and it was because we animated the transform geometry. So if I start from frame 1, you can see that it's just rotating on the z-axis and just moving about. Honestly, you may not want to do it, you may want to do it, it's all left to you, but that is what we're going to use to animate. We're going to be using the rotational movement and not even the noise texture. Meanwhile, you can just use this to get any sort of a gradient you feel like you want, which is the W value. Alright, so in between here, I think it was between the extrude mesh and scale element. If we just check back again, yeah, so we're going to add in a transform geometry here. So I'm just going to press shift A. I'm going to add in a transform geometry, and then we are going to, on the z axis, we are going to like animate the rotation. So what I will do is I will start on frame 0. So I'm going to press A to delete all keyframes. I'm selecting this right now, and what I will do is on frame 0, I would like to start on frame 0, not frame 1. I am going to just press this to start from frame 0. On the z axis of this object, right click and insert a single keyframe. Then when we get to frame 250, I'm going to just use something like, you can use 250 if you want, but I think I'll just use like 200. Then I'll press I to insert single keyframe. Alright, so that's just pretty much how the animation was done. So for the animation, I can press A to select everything. I'm just going to press shift E, and I'm just going to make this cyclic to sort of have that loop effect by the time the animation ends. Alright, so we can proceed to adding materials now. But the first thing I'll do is I'm going to add in a camera. So I'm just going to come to my front view here, and I'm just going to bring it out a bit like this. Make sure that you are in frame 0, and I'm just going to press shift A, add in a camera, and I'm going to just press Ctrl Alt number per 0, so align it to this view, or maybe not, because I'm going to change from perspective to orthographic, so it doesn't mean. So I'm just going to reduce this and bring it in close like so, or maybe I don't want my camera to start from this view right here, so maybe something like this is okay. Sorry. So yeah, I'm just going to click into it like that. So we're going to start from somewhere around here. Then now I think we can start adding materials. So what I'll do is I'm going to bring this window down. For the camera, I'm going to change the viewport display to something like 0. Then I'm just going to bring this along here. Then I'm going to um, click to drag and create a new window like so, and I'm going to change this to the geometry node editor because we're still going to need it. Select this, press N, so we still have our geometry nodes here. Then I'm going to change this tab right here back to the shader editor because we're going to just add in simple materials. So this is what we have. The product right here, if I change this from cycles to, from EV to cycles, and I change it here, so you can see there's no light in our scene. Just to create a quick light, what I will do is I'm going to press Ctrl T on this environment background to create an environment texture, and I'm just going to add an HDRI to my scene. I'm going to be using this HDRI from HDRI Avin. I'm going to link it in the description. If you don't know what HDRIs are and it's your first time, I'm going to link up a video explaining what HDRI are. So it's just like a quick lighting setup. Is I'm just going to reduce this to something like 0.8, and maybe what I'll do is just a quick one, but I think I will change this back to my 3D viewport. So I think I'm just going to add in a spotlight, so to say, just to bounce off some light. So I'm going to add in a spotlight somewhere around here. I'm going to come to my rear and just perhaps bring it here and just press R like so. Alright, so you can increase the power of that whatever you want. And first of all, let me put the strength of this HDRI to 0 so we can see that first. And I'm just going to use something like, let's say 5000 watts, and let's see. Okay, so that is way too much. We don't want that. So something like 1000, just for it to add more light. That's just the whole reason why we're doing this. Yeah, just okay. Honestly, the HDRI is enough for this. Maybe I'll increase the spot size or reduce it. You can just go ahead with anything you want to do. Now I need to go to my top view and see where the camera is. So the camera is around here, so I want to press R to rotate this and bring it to nearly where the camera is, so at this side, so to say, and bring it in close. So let's see how that looks. Alright, so yeah, so I think this is okay. I won't really want to stretch this further. Then for the strength of the HDRI, I will return it back to something like points. Hit again. So we just have like this quick lighting setup, nothing really special. Yeah, we don't have time. Then for these cubes right here, so if we go back to the geometry node editor, for this platform that the objects are being held on to, we need to just add in like sort of a black material to it. So I'm going to change this shader type to object. Then for the cube, we need to create a new material. So as you can see, by default Blender has already created a new material for it, and I'm just going to change this to be slightly black. What I want to do is I want to make the material be seen in our geometry nodes, because right now you can see that the material is not taking any effect. That's because in the geometry nodes right here, it's not, we've not added it to it. Press Shift A to add in a set material, and I'm just going to click enter. Then I'm going to select the material that we just created, which is the material right here. And what you will observe is the product already has its own material, so I don't want to add the material to the whole of the node setup, but only the extruded mesh right here. So you are just going to come to your geometry nodes tab and check for where the extrude mesh goes into the joint geometry, and you are going to place the set material in between them. So by the time you do that, this is what you have. Change some render settings, like for the color management, you can change this from um, none to punchy, to just kind of give a more of a punchy look. Just play around with some settings, maybe the number of render amount and samples you want to play with, and by the time you are done, you can also render this as a PNG sequence and just have like a folder that you packed everything to. I think like for me now, you can see pit drink, and I just accepted the folder and I just press Ctrl L12 and I render the animation. Thank you so much. That will be the end of this tutorial. I hope it was a quick one, and I hope that you totally enjoyed it. Please, if you do, don't forget to like and subscribe, and see you in the next tutorial.